can have a compassion for someone, right? Which is a good thing. That's Tiferes, Rachamim. But the compassion can be in such a way that you make the person feel vulnerable, weak, pitiful, like having, you're being nice and kind to him, or the person can feel the compassion comes because like in a loving way, in a more respectful way. That would be chesed Shabbat the purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I guess so. If it doesn't go in the sink, it's going to go on the desk.
Right.
And me. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'shachar v'yigdal. Good morning, Chanukah. Sorry, Rivka. Yeah. Wondering what makes the difference. One day you walk in, it's full. One day you walk in, it's empty.
Today's
What is
Friday.
it? Oh, it's Friday. Okay. Getting
That's
ready for
Thanksgiving.
Shabbos.
Yes.
Okay. So we are concluding the minor. And that is here on page 150 and 160. Just something came across my mind yesterday. I'm teaching another class that we had this last part of the mimer gives an answer to why does it say that you count the Omer after Shabbos? Why is it emphasizing Shabbos? So he said that before you can go ahead and really refine your midos, you have to have Shabbos, meaning you have to have rest. It means you have to leave, get away from Hanachas Ha'olam, from worldly perspectives, worldly way of thinking of things and worldly pursuits. So we were talking about yesterday, what does it mean? And the best way I could explain it is it's actually talking about value systems, the worldly value system. It's not about doing an aver, not doing an aver. It's just about a way of thinking, a way of feeling. Just something that came across my mind yesterday was, let's say if something happens. Let's say right now things are happening in Eretz Yisrael. So you hear from me and you hear from many people, wow, these are miracles. Then there's to be people, and I'm not talking people that are not Jewish or Jewish but not from, even from people, and they'll sort of dismiss, why are you calling this miracles? Israeli army is very skilled. There's nobody like them. The Shin Bet, they know everything, every detail. The intelligence just at the best in the world, very well trained. And of course it has Hashem's bracha, but they would rather attribute it to nature than miracles. And the reason for that is because there's just two ways to look at the world, and that's the difference between the two things. The way we look at the world is the Eibishter is running the world. Even things that are natural is really Hashem. And another person could look at the world, that even things that look like it's miraculous, but it's really nature, but just like what's the word? It's an amazing coincidence that this soldier happened to walk out of this building just before it collapsed, and that person happened to go into the other building just before that happened. And you can explain everything in a natural way. It's a way of thinking and a way of looking at things. So what he's saying is a person has to let go of that, and then they can start working on self-refinement, refining their animalistic character traits. Okay. So let's read the last two paragraphs. Kashel Yehudi Mishageya. If a Yid will toil, will work hard, the sakin the Sheva Hashabas Shaloi, to repair the 7 weeks, which means the 7 meters of the Nefesh Elokis, the 7 meters of the godly soul will refine the 7 meters of the Yetzer Hara. And they will refine the 7 meters of the natural soul. That you'll be complete. Because that was another question. Why does it the pasuk have to add tmimus? It'll be complete. If you count 7 weeks, it's complete. So what he's saying is, no, it's in the sense that the Torah is giving you a promise that if you refine yourself and do your Aveda, then the Torah promises that you'll be complete. What does that mean? So I think we can understand it from another thing that it says in Chassidus. I mentioned this question in the beginning when we started the Maimer, but I did not, it's not in the Maimer, but it's one of the main subjects in Chassidus when it comes to Sfiras Omer. In the Chumash it says you'll count 50 days. But in actuality, we count 49 days. And how does the Gemara know this? The Oral Torah knows this because this was what it was given over orally, that it's only 49 days, not 50. So why does it say 50? Shavuos is the 50th day, but you don't count the 50th day. And the Chumash says, Usefartem, you will count 50 days. So the way Chassidus explains it is that there are 49 of the spheres. So there's Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus, and you refine every single day of the spheres. And then what? So there's another concept which is found in Chassidus about the number 50, why there are certain things in Torah related to the number 50, because there are Chamishim Sharei Bina. There are 50 gates of Bina, of understanding. And it's based on a pasuk where it says there are 32 paths of Chokhmah, 32 paths of wisdom, and 50 gates of Bina. And the truth is that if you look at the spheros, you'll see what comes after 49 is Bina. Why am I saying that? Malchus is 1, Yesod is 2, that's it. And up until Chesed, from Malchus till Chesed is 7 times 7, 49. What's above Chesed? What's the next sphere above Chesed? Really, it's Das. But we know that sometimes Das is looked upon more as a bridge between the intellect and the emotion. And therefore, it's not even counted as one of the 10. So if it's not counted, what's the next one that's counted is Bina. And that's number 50, because that comes after the 49. So why don't we count 50 days? So we'll have the 10, all the 7 spheres, and we'll have the 50th sphere, which is Bina. So the answer is that the 50th gate is something which is part of the infinite realm, and we can't access that, we can't draw that down through our counting. If I count, and by counting I draw down a certain sphere, that means that I can have access to it. The 50th gate is beyond us. Nevertheless, after we count 49 gates, we will get the 50th gate as well. Yeah.
So the 50th gate is Bina, but you said that there are 50 gates in Bina.
Right.
Which
So in other words, the number 50 is related to Bina because Bina is made up of 50 parts, 50 gates.
What does that mean?
What it means is that there are 50 aspects in Bina, but Bina is also number 50 when you're counting from the first sphere to the seventh. Is 49, and then Bina will be number 50. So it's both. It consists of 50 parts, and it is the 50th in that counting. So how do we get the 50th gate if we can't draw it down and you can't count it? Why does the Torah say you'll count 50 days, you're only counting 49? So we're giving an answer because even though you count 49, you'll also get the 50th gate. But how do you get it? If it's because I counted, that means that my counting does access it. And if it's not because of my counting, then how does it come to me after counting? Am I confusing you? You count 49 days. The Torah is telling us after you count 49 days, not only will you have the 49 gates, you'll get the 50th gate as well. And that's why it says count 50 days. Okay, but how do you get that 50th gate? If it's something which we can access it and we can draw it down, why do we count? Hayom Yom Chamisha. Today's the 50th day. And if you can't access it, then how does our counting 49 days bring it down? So first I'll give you the answer and then I'll explain it. The answer that's given is we can't bring it down, but after we count 49 days, that allows that light to shine on its own. To use an analogy, with sunlight, I can't bring sunlight into the room. I can't use a magnet. I can't use a shovel. I can't use a lasso to get it into the room. So basically, there are certain things which why can't I? Because it's too abstract. I can't hold on to anything to schlep it into the room. But yet, when you open the shades, I do bring the sunlight into the room. Well, how come I can do that? I just finished saying I cannot bring sunlight into the room, and yet when I open the shades or the shutters on the outside, and now the sun shines into the room, and I brought it in. Yeah.
So maybe by going through the 49, you created an opening in themselves.
Exactly. I didn't bring in the sunlight. What I did was I made a space. Now there's nothing blocking. Now this sunlight can shine. So the sunlight shines on its own. I can't access to it. But I could do something else. And when I do that, I create a certain space. Now that the space is there, the sunlight could come in. There's nothing blocking. The 49 gates are things that I can bring. And if you look at the prayer that we say every night after the counting, we should draw down this spirit, and it's going to shine in all the worlds, and it's going to shine on my nefesh, on my ruach, on my neshama. So we're drawing something down that's going to shine on the world. The 50th gate we can't draw down, but after drawing down the 49, there's so much kedusha that this creates a space. Now there's nothing blocking, and now the 50th gate will come and shine on its own. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe's son. He had a son. Of course, we know the Alter Rebbe's son was the Mittel Rebbe, became the next Rebbe. But he had another son whose name was Reb Chaim Avraham. Even though he wasn't the Rebbe, but he was also a very big tzaddik. And when he was older, the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the Alter Rebbe's grandson, and he was also his uncle, because Tzemach Tzedek's mother was also a daughter of the Alter Rebbe. So the Tzemach Tzedek used to look after him because he was older, come around, doesn't need anything. He's in shul the night of Shavuos, and he looks around, he sees his uncle's not here. So he was worried if he's okay. And he went to his house, and he found him, he's fine, he's sitting by the table, but he sees him crying, and it's Yontif. And he said to him, what's going on? So he said, been counting 49 days, and I don't feel the 50th. We don't have that problem because we don't feel the first and we don't feel the second. So how can I feel the 50th? But I guess someone who felt what he's accomplishing every day of counting the Omer, so on the 50th night, he's waiting to get that 50th, and that's what he was complaining about. He didn't feel it. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar to the Mishkan. When they built the Mishkan, it says that they put everything together. You just read it in the Parsha, Parsha Shmini. They put everything together. They built the Mishkan, and then they're waiting for the Shekhinah to come down, and it didn't come down. And Aaron was embarrassed. He told Moshe, "What did you do to me? You're embarrassing me in public because it's because of me. I know it's because of me that the Shekhinah is not coming down, because he was involved in the Yidden when they made the Egel, when they made the golden calf." So Moshe Rabbeinu said no, and he said a certain prayer. He actually said the prayer which is from chapter 90 in Tehillim, V'hinei Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu. And after he said that prayer, the Shekhinah came down, which means what? Which means everything else they had to build. They had to set up the walls. They have to set up the Aron. They have to put this here. They have to put that there. With the Shekhinah, there's nothing to put anymore. It's all, everything's ready. Now you just need the Shekhinah to come down. So the last thing they needed was to say this prayer, and apparently that made the space. And now when the prayer, now the Shekhinah can come down. But everything else they actually had to build, which means everything else was created through their actions. And the same thing's over here. So yeah.
After we create like that opening within ourselves, what type of light is revealed?
So first of all, I think that's what it means in the Maimon when it says, why does it say, and you'll be complete? It means to say, after you do the 49, Hashem will do his part and make you complete. What exactly it means? I guess it means that I'll get normally I get from above something which is in proportion to what I've done, just like Begashmas. If I work somewhere for 5 hours, I'll be paid 5 hours of work. If I work for 10 hours, I'll get 10 hours of work. The Ruchni is if I invest so much effort in doing this, and this, what I get from above will be in proportion to the work that I've done and the effort that I've made. But Hashem gives me something which is more than what I put in, not in proportion to what I put in. That's like the 50th. I mean, that's the same idea. A certain assistance from above that's even more than in proportion to my avodah, that I made myself into a vessel.
So we're talking about the spheros, and then there's exercises like Jacob's book that you can do, but simply counting.
It's counting, but of course, like everything else, first of all, it's simply counting. No matter what I'm thinking, no matter what I'm feeling. And I said that the Eibishter made the world today, say this many times, because of technology, that it helps understand things beruchnius. But we live in a world today that now we have machines and technology that's activated just by voice. So I could be standing in front of an elevator and I say down. What happens? There's an elevator on the 100th floor. Instead of pressing a button, I just say down. It comes down. So that means my words brought it down. And spiritually, certainly that's what happens. Just saying the words, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, and then saying Hayom Yom this and this, the light comes down. If I also know what I'm doing and I'm thinking about what I'm doing and I'm concentrating and I'm hoping, like we're saying that prayer, Hashem, I should really bring that down, meaning I should feel it, then it'll have more of a conscious effect on me. That's what it means. Now, true, I don't feel any sensation at the moment, or I don't feel something tickling me at the moment. But it could be that with time something comes up, and I see that I did something positive, whether it was in a chesed way, in a gevura way. That could all be a result of my counting the Omer. I just don't see that connection.
I guess, it's hard to apply logic, but even just with logic, we're doing what Hashem asked. That's power. And Hashem said, count the Omer.
Right,
So
and just the actions what really counts more than anything else. In fact, if a person would have all the intentions but didn't count verbally, he has not fulfilled Hashem's wish. It violated Torah. If a person just says the words and doesn't pay attention to what they're saying, they fulfilled what they have to do. I mean, he has to pay attention because he has to count the day. He must know what day it is, otherwise he can't count. There's two things that you can't, in davening, that you can't say without really having intention. One is the counting of the Omer, and the other is the counting of the days of the week. You can't say it unless you think for a second. Everything else, you can just blabble without even knowing what you're saying. But you can't say today is Friday if you're not thinking. Okay. So, I think we can go over to the terms of maybe, instead of doing that right now. Okay, let me say one more thing, and then I want to speak a little bit about Rabbi Marash, which is Beis Ir, which is Sunday, is the Rabbi Marash's birthday. Rabbi Marash is known by the word L'chatchila, river. We put this on the table, that you can take something home and read about the Rabbi Marash. But before we do that, I just want to cover one thing here that's also related to our subject. It's not in the Maimer, but this will help us understand. We know that during these days of Sfiras Omer, it's also a time, according to halacha, that we're not allowed to make weddings, and we're not allowed to do other things which are, of course, not like the 9 days, not like during the summer, but there are certain halachas that are restrictions because we're mourning the death of Rabbi Akiva's students. And why did they pass away? What does it say? What's the reason? It doesn't use the word sinas chinim. It says they didn't respect one another properly. In other words, they were lacking in Avos Yisrael. So the fact that happened to happen during Sfiras Omer, that's exactly when it happened, from the beginning to the end of Sfiras Omer. Yeah, there was a break one day. The day was Lag BaOmer. That's why it's a yontif. But other than that, it happened during Sfiras Omer. There must be a connection between that and Sfiras Omer. So the connection is, it's exactly the same, it's all the same. Meaning, first of all, if these were the students of Rabbi Akiva, I can guarantee you they weren't throwing bottles at each other or chairs. When we said they didn't have respect for one another, it means people of this caliber, on that level, the respect they had for one another was not on par with the way it should have been for such great Torah scholars. But why not? If they were Torah scholars. And what's more shocking than anything else, their Rebbe was the one who promoted Avos Yisrael more than anyone else. He's known for the famous quote, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamecha zeh klal gadol b'Torah." That love for a fellow Jew is a cardinal principle in the Torah. How is it that Dafka, his students, are the ones that were not respectful? So the way it's explained in Chassidus is they were all tzaddikim, and they were all very passionate about Torah and Hashem. But the fact that there are many different students means that they had, even though they're all Rabbi Akiva's students, that's the general path in Torah came from Rabbi Akiva, But the specifics, they were different. Each one had their way, how they davened and learned and served Hashem. And each one of them was very passionate about their way of davening and learning. And because they're so passionate about the way they daven, learn, and do everything, therefore they didn't respect so much what the other person did, because they felt what the other person is doing is deficient. It's not good enough. This is a much better way. And again, they were able to tolerate each other. They were able to live together with each other and happily, but because they were so passionate about their way of davening and learning and doing mitzvahs, and they felt that this was better than the other way, therefore it affected the degree of respect that they had for the other students. To give an example of this, because you remember this when we learned about the world of Tohu, that the spheres sort of fell apart, and the reason was because they didn't include one another, which is exactly what we're talking about. If you have two people, one person's a chesed person, and the other person's a gevura person. I don't mean bad and good. Two good people, but different natures. One is chesed, means very kind, very passionate about kindness, and about softness, and about gentleness, and everything they do and everything they try to accomplish is in that way. The other person is very passionate about discipline. Things have to be in order, things have to be right, and disciplining is the key. Let's say they're both teaching the same classroom, kids working together. It's going to be a disaster. Because one teacher is going to say, okay, Mama, it's okay. Yeah, just make sure next time you do it right. And the other one's going to say, you can't come into class unless you give me a commitment that you do it. So which way is it going to go? Of course, you need to ferris, you need to balance between the two. But basically, it means like this. If I'm a chesed person and the other person is a gevura person, how is it possible for me to sort of work together with the other person? Is if even though I'm chesed, but I can understand their perspective. There's some people that they just cannot relate to and cannot understand another person's perspective. They can, everything's black and white. They can only see it their way. And if they only see it their way, they can't really connect with the other person. However, if I have the ability to see things also from a gevura perspective, then I can relate to that gevura person. So translate this in different words. If chesed has gevura in it, then that chesed could relate to someone who has gevura. If the gevura person has chesed in him, then he can relate to a person who is a chesed person. You know, there are certain people, adults, that cannot relate to children. Children make them nervous and children get them upset. And if the children make a mistake or they spill something out, they get all bent out of shape. They can't relate to children. There's only a child. I don't understand a child. They have to do this and this. Or a child is crying because they wanted a red pen and instead of the red or the pink, they got the blue. And that, kind of nonsense. What's the difference if it's red or blue? And the kid is crying, no, but I want the blue. If a person can't relate to a child, they won't be able to tolerate the child. But being that we were all once upon a time children, so we should be able to relate a little bit to what a child is all about. And therefore, we could relate to a child. I sort of try to remember, how was I when I was a child? How did I feel about things? So basically, this is the concept that Rabbi Akiva's students, in a sense, they had different midos, they were different character traits. That's why there were differences, but it was more exclusive, like just this and not including the other kind. And that's why there was a rift, and that's why there wasn't a perfect harmony between them. So the 7 weeks is all about including each sphere in the other sphere. So what we're doing by counting the Yom is the exact opposite of what happened with the students in Rabbi Akiva. That's the connection. And the language of Chassidus, if you remember this from the Mamar of Torah, is it's here on the list, is scholarless. Scholarless means inclusion, where one includes the other. And if one includes the other, then one could connect with the other. Very often that is the problem in relationships, where even though if anyone thinks that the reason why there are successful, happy marriages because the two people are perfect carbon copies of each other, it's a big mistake. There are probably no such marriages in the world. Nobody, no two people are the same, especially men and women. They have their differences, but they understand each other and they accept each other's differences, and therefore they can live together in harmony. That's what it's about. Not about being the same or doing the same. So it doesn't matter that one person's on time, one person's not on time. One person's organized, one person's not organized. That's not what it's about. It's about me being able to understand this other person, where they're coming from, and therefore understanding that we are different, and I'm different than them, and they're different than me, and I want them to accept me with my differences, and therefore I accept them with their differences, and we can come together. Okay, just a few words, and the rest hopefully we'll read here. Is if you look in the Hayom Yom of Beis Eir, by the way, Beis Eir is also the day that the Frierdiker Rebbe chose to start writing the Sefer Torah of Mashiach, which we have in 770. That was started on Beis Eir, the second day of Eir, 1941. The Frierdiker Rebbe made the announcement that he's writing the Sefer Torah on Simchas Torah, writing the Sefer Torah exclusively for the purpose of greeting Mashiach. And he said we're going to start it, but it was never started. He waited from Simchas Torah until this day, Beis Eir, and that's when they started it. So, what does it say? And that the Tzemach Tzedek was testing the Rebbe Marash, and his teacher was there present at the time. And the Rebbe Marash, his answers were like above and beyond. And the teacher got so excited and said to the Tzemach Tzedek, Rebbe, look how he's doing so well. And Tzemach Tzedek said, so what's the big deal that Teferes Shabbat Teferes is doing so well? The sphere of Beis Eir is Teferes in Teferes. So that's another discussion what that means. But this is connected to the fact that the Rebbe Marash is known that he said, out there in the world, they say that if you can't go under, you go over. And I say that lichatchila, you just go over. And the Rebbe has repeated this hundreds of times, not thousands. Not only repeated it, but the Rebbe lives by this. The Rebbe guided everyone by this in so many different ways. And the shocking thing is, once you hear the Rebbe Sichos, you would think that the Rebbe Marash always said this at least once a week. No, there's one story, one time that he said it, but the Rebbe is the one that said that this saying is what characterizes the Rebbe Marash. And in so many different ways, the Chatchila Rebbe. So what does it mean? Let's just translate in simple words. Chatchila Rebbe means basically that when something is blocking you, something is in your way, you want to proceed, you want to advance, you want to move forward. This begashmis, to be financial, to be spiritual, but something's blocking you. There's two ways to deal with it. The first way that most people will deal with it is that you try to wrestle with it and bring it down. And once you bring it down, now I can walk through. What if I can't? Then you try to go through some other way that you don't have to wrestle and fight with whatever it is that's blocking you. So the Rebbe Marash says, and my approach is, don't try to wrestle with it, and if it doesn't work, then you can try to do some other way. But lechatchila a river, lechatchila go over it, which basically means that the way to get rid of obstacles, the way to get rid of things that are barriers and standing in the way, is by just disregarding them, dismissing it, and approaching it in a way as if it doesn't exist. And if you approach it that way, you'll see that it truly will not get in your way. Again, it doesn't mean the thing doesn't exist, but it's not going to be disturbing to me. It's not going to get in my way because I'm not giving it any attention. So when I'm wrestling with it, when I'm fighting with it, and I'm pushing it down, the good news is that I might be able to knock it down. But the bad news is I'm feeding it. I'm giving it strength by the mere fact that I'm dealing with it. And the Rabbi Marash says the higher way and the better way is l'chatchila riba. the mimer the sikha rather that we learned, those of you that were in the class when we did it this week, about not seeing the bad in another person is a good example. One way is you see a person, you see what's bad in them, and you really are almost even disgusted about how bad this person is, but you don't speak lashon hara. You're not going to say it to anybody else. It might be a struggle because it's so nice and juicy to have a good story, but you're not allowed to. So I'm not going to say lashon hara. It doesn't mean that I look at the other person in such a way I don't even see the bad in the person. I see the person from such a perspective that I don't notice, and it doesn't even register in my head, oh, how bad the person is. That's not what registers in my head. What registers is how I can help them, what can I do for them, but not how bad they are. That's lechatchila riba. Like somebody once asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, or raised the question, like, why don't we talk a lot about the lashon hara? In many circles, it's a very big discussion, always talking about do not speak lashon hara. And the answer was that in Chassidus, it's not only don't speak lashon hara, don't even think about the bad in another person in the first place. In fact, the Rebbe once explained that by talking about a lot about not speaking lashon hara, you're actually doing lashon hara. In other words, what's lashon hara? Don't make an issue of the other person's negative character traits. Don't give it strength. Don't feed it. If I talk all day long about not speaking lashon hara, I'm giving strength to negativity. So in general, that is lechatchila riba in so many different ways that we try everything we can not to give attention and to the things that get in our way and just go forward. And we'll see if we have that kind of an attitude, we'll be able to rise above those things. Another way that this manifested by the Rebbe Marash was that the way he did things was different than any other Rebbe in the sense that he performed and did things in a way which was very much similar to the Baal Shem Tov, like open, miraculous things in many ways. There are a lot of stories, not enough time for all those stories, but I'll just mention two things. One was actually something that happened before he was nostalgic, before he passed away. He called in his secretary, and he said, I want you to bring in my 3 sons. I want to speak to each one separately. And he was wearing a vest. And in the vest, there was, years ago, that's how people had a clock, a little watch, and a chain in the pocket of the vest. He took out that watch. He took the handle and he set it for a certain time, I think 11:45, put a piece of paper under it, so it got stuck, it wasn't moving. And then he spoke to all his sons. And then exactly at 11:45, he passed away. Basically, he wrote before, not only what day, but what minute he's going to pass away. And there are stories where he told people things that happened to them in the past that they had no idea that anybody would know about it. I'll just say quickly this one story about a man who said how he became a chassid was that he grew up as a religious Jew, but he had a lot of non-Jewish friends, and he got distant from Yiddishkeit, and he went so far as to marry somebody who's not Jewish. And he lived a very non-Jewish life, totally forgot about his Jewish background. And he said, and what was his profession? He was an entertainer. He used to entertain by weddings, by parties. And one night he has a dream. His father comes to him in his dream, calls him by his Jewish name and says, enough already. It's time that you become a Jew. First he woke up with a shock. Hadn't seen his father for years, and his father is not alive for 10 years. And then he just calmed himself down. So it's only a dream, like, take it easy. Wash his face with cold water and went back to sleep. The next night, he has the same dream again. The next night, again, and the voice is getting stronger. One night, he was actually performing at a party. And while he's performing, he sees the image of his father standing there and said, enough with this nonsense. You have to become a Yid. He got so like head, he was like went all nuts. He pulled out a gun and he shot at the image. Now nobody saw images; they just saw a man dancing or performing, pulling out a gun and starting to shoot. So everybody ran for their lives. They thought he went nuts and he's going to shoot people. So they all ran to hide. They ran out the window. They ran out the room, and he himself like was frightened of himself, and he just ran. He ran and ran until he ran out of his town, ran through the roads, came to the next town, and he sat down like, what am I going to do here? And then he figured, okay, this is a very frightening thing. He's going to go to the rabbi, and there's the rabbi, what he can do. I mean, a dream, his father's coming, like Yiddishkeit. Came to the rabbi said, listen, if you ask me a question about what you could do Shabbos, or what's kosher, I can answer. Dreams? I know nothing about dreams. There is a town not far from here called Lubavitch. And that rabbi, he deals with dreams. You can go to him, like spiritual things. He went to the Rabbi Marash. He walked in. Before he opened his mouth, the Rabbi Marash said, unheard of. A son should shoot his father? He heard these words and he fainted. But he said, when I woke up, I knew this is the place of truth. And he changed his life and he became a chassid. So such a thing, to openly speak like that, they don't, even by the rabbis of Chabad, they didn't openly speak about everything that they knew. The Rabbi Marash was openly, but that's also, in a sense, l'chatchila riber, meaning a river, the laws of nature. He didn't follow the laws of nature, he just went straight above it. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about, but we have a clock. Should we do l'chatchila riber and forget about the clock? Okay. I think you have a class now. Rabbi Hanoka, yeah.
The first three, the father said, what's in the first three? What did the father
His
say?
father just said, Zaya Yid, meaning become a Jew again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing about the entertaining.
No.
That's silly, don't waste your time.
Yeah. And make sure that these wordings are exact, but the fact that it said be a Jew, that must be the accurate, yeah. But-
Thank you. And thank you.
Welcome.
Good job, Ed.
Everybody.
Are you really excited about that? You know, I don't remember. Like 10, probably. I see. I can yeah. Yeah, but 5 minutes. Okay. How are you? I'm so sorry. Oh, happy birthday. Like your dress, looks supposedly comfortable. Yeah, it's the best for someone. I usually put a belt on. I'm like, I'm not even wearing a belt. Yeah, you're the fashion. You need to like, remember my day to feel comfortable. It's comfortable. Exactly. Oh, so hurt with you. Yes. Also, you look amazing. And I feel like it's like it's in your pocket. It's in my palette. Green, brown, and green, orange, rust. Yeah. What are your eyes doing for Shabbat? My revelation. I'm ready to bring them and they come. The time.